You walked out to the garden this morning, coffee still in hand, and there they are again. Yellow heads scattered across the grass. Green pushing up through every crack in the walkway. You pulled every single one of them not 2 weeks ago. Your hands still remember that work, the ache in your knees from kneeling, the dirt you had to scrub out from under your nails. And here they are, standing tall again, like you never touched them at all. Like that whole afternoon you spent out there never even happened. I want to share something I was told as a young girl, kneeling beside my mother in the garden, nearly in tears with frustration because the weeds kept winning. She told me, "You're not losing because you're weak. You're losing because nobody ever taught you what you're actually up against." That's the truth I want to pass along to you today, the same way it was passed to me. I keep a traditional household, and my family has maintained a garden on the same piece of land for as long as anyone can remember, every single season, through good years and lean ones alike. I've raised children on what comes out of that ground, fed them through long winters on what I stored away in the root cellar. And I can tell you the weed itself hasn't changed one bit in all that time. The dandelion my grandmother fought is the exact same dandelion in your lawn this morning. It hasn't gotten any smarter or any tougher. What's changed is how people fight it, and unfortunately, it hasn't changed for the better. It's gotten more expensive and less honest both at once. Here's what's actually happening. When you pull a dandelion, you feel the leaves give way, you see the green come loose in your hand, and your brain says, "Got it." But that plant has a root running straight down into the earth, sometimes deep as your forearm, thick, pale, and stubborn. When you pull from the top, that root stays exactly where it was. You've snapped the plant off at the shoulders and left the entire living body of it intact underground. You didn't kill it, you pruned it. You did that weed the exact same favor you do a rose bush by cutting it back, so it grows in even fuller next season. Within a week, sometimes just a few days, that root sends up a brand new crown of leaves to mock you all over again. That's the whole heartbreak of it. And I want you to really hear this next part because it matters. People aren't failing from lack of effort. I've watched neighbors, good, hardworking people, the kind who'd show up to help you with anything, out there every Saturday morning on their hands and knees in the hot sun, pulling and pulling. And the weeds beat them every single time. Not because those people are lazy or careless, but because nobody ever told them they were pruning their weeds instead of actually killing them. They were putting in faithful, honest labor and getting nothing lasting from it. And there's a particular kind of heartbreak in working hard at something and having it amount to nothing without ever understanding why. Before we go further, I want to offer you something. If you're interested in the fuller method, how I run an entire household this traditional way, from food savings to gardening to canning, mending, and repairs, I've gathered all of it into one complete resource, and I'll leave that linked below for anyone who wants it. Now back to these weeds, because there's a lot to cover. Here's the first thing you need to understand. You don't have one weed problem. You have two, and they're not the same fight at all. No matter how similar they look standing on your back step, the weeds growing up in your lawn are one kind of trouble, and the weeds creeping through the cracks in your walkway or patio are an entirely different kind. You don't fight them the same way because they live in two completely different environments, and the environment changes everything. Treat them identically, and you'll lose both battles at once. So let's take them one at a time, patiently and properly. Start with the lawn, because that's where most people accidentally do the most damage. When you've got a dandelion, a plantain, or a thistle standing alone in the grass, anything with that single deep root running straight down like a carrot, do not grab it with your bare hands and yank. I understand the appeal. There's a real satisfaction in feeling that green come loose in your grip. But you already know what that satisfaction is actually worth. Nothing. Less than nothing, because it sends you back inside believing the job is finished when it isn't. What you want instead is a long-handled weeding fork, the kind you can stand upright and lean your full weight into. Push the forked end down into the soil right alongside the root, rock the handle back to lever against the earth, and the entire plant lifts out of the ground, leaves, crown, and that long pale root, all in one piece. That's the entire difference between winning and losing. You're not snapping the plant off at the neck and leaving the body to regenerate. You're lifting the whole living organism out of the earth in a single motion, leaving absolutely nothing behind to grow back. This works beautifully on anything with that single deep taproot, and it's honest, quiet work, No spray, no smell, no waiting around. Just you, the tool, and the plant coming up whole. But I'll be direct with you, because directness is the only way I know how to teach. That fork is the right tool for one weed here, and one weed there, a dandelion in the middle of the yard, a thistle by the fence post. But if your entire lawn has been overrun by clover spreading in wide sheets or creeping buttercup running across in broad patches, you'll be out there forking each one individually until you simply run out of time. You'll never reach the end of it. For that kind of widespread problem, there's what's called a selective weed killer, and I want to explain this carefully because it's exactly where most people make their biggest mistake. Selective is the key word, and it means something specific. The product is designed to harm only broadleaf weeds, your dandelion, your clover, your daisy, anything with wide leaves, while leaving your grass completely untouched right beside them. This works because grass is structurally different at the root level than a broadleaf plant, and the product is engineered to target one and pass right over the other. Completely honest about this. It's a manufactured product, not something that comes out of a traditional recipe passed down through generations. Because of that, you need to follow the label instructions with real precision. Apply it only on a dry, still day, never with rain expected in the next day or two, since rain will wash it away before it can work, and never on a windy day, since wind will carry it somewhere you never intended. Keep children and pets off that grass entirely until it has fully dried. Then give it 2 to 3 weeks of patience. The weeds will yellow, then curl, then die back into the ground, and your grass will quietly close in over the empty spaces, healing the lawn on its own. And now here's the part nobody tells you, the part that actually keeps the weeds gone for good instead of just for one season. Stop cutting your grass so short. I mean it. People scalp their lawns down close to bare dirt because they think it looks neat and tidy, and all they've actually done is throw the door wide open and invite the weeds right back in. Here's why. A weed seed needs light to wake up and germinate. It can lie dormant in the soil, patiently waiting for its chance. When you cut your grass down to almost nothing, you let sunlight pour directly onto that bare soil, and every dormant seed wakes up at once. But when you let your grass grow tall, 3 good inches, even 4, thick and full, that grass shades the soil so completely that light never reaches those seeds at all. No light, no germination. No germination, no weed. Your own lawn becomes the barrier that keeps them out, standing guard day and night without any effort from you. My mother never owned a single bottle of anything in her entire life, not one, and her grass was thick as sheep's wool, deep green, soft underfoot. It was thick precisely because she understood something the bottle sellers will never tell you. A strong, healthy, tall stand of grass does the guarding entirely on its own. The tall, strong grass is what survives and holds the ground season after season, and the survivors are what hold the territory. She didn't fight the weeds directly. She grew grass so vigorous that weeds never got a foothold to begin with. That's a fundamentally different way of thinking about the whole problem, and it's the older, wiser approach. Now the walkway is an entirely different matter, and you shouldn't carry your lawn methods over onto it, or vice versa. Weeds coming up between paving stones and along patio edges can be fought considerably harder, for one simple reason. There's no good grass there that needs protecting. It's just stone and seams, so you can use stronger, blunter methods on the walkway that you'd never risk near your lawn. Here's the mistake I see most often, and it's a costly one. People reach for a total, non-selective weed killer, the kind that kills anything green it touches, and spray it liberally across the stone. Yes, it kills what's growing there. But even a tiny bit of that spray drifting sideways onto the lawn, and it always drifts, there's always a breath of wind you didn't notice, leaves you with dead brown patches scattered through your good grass that take months to recover. You've traded a few weeds in your walkway for bald spots in your lawn. That's a poor trade. So on stone, we use older, gentler methods that stay exactly where you put them. The first costs absolutely nothing. It's the one people overlook because it seems far too simple to actually work: boiling water. That's genuinely all it takes. Next time you drain a pot of pasta or pour off water from boiled potatoes, don't tip it down the sink. Carry it out to the walkway and pour it slowly and carefully directly onto the weeds growing between the stones. The heat destroys the plant on contact, breaking down its cells, root and crown together. Give it a day, maybe two at most, and those weeds will be brown, finished, and easy to sweep away. No product to buy, no chemical residue left behind on stone where children play, no money spent at all. Just be careful. That water is hot enough to scald badly, so wear proper shoes, pour slowly, and make sure children are well clear before you carry it outside. The second method is a mixture gardeners have relied on for generations. Plain white vinegar, ordinary table salt, and a small squeeze of dish soap, stirred together. Each ingredient does its own job. The vinegar cuts through the waxy protective coating on the leaf that normally sheds water and protects the plant. The salt pulls moisture directly out of the plant, drying it down to nothing, the same way salt has cured and preserved meat for centuries. And the small amount of dish soap helps the whole mixture cling to the leaf and stay put instead of beating up and running off onto the ground. Apply it directly onto the weeds on a warm, dry day when sunlight will help it work. But listen carefully here, because this is where people get into trouble. That salt sours the ground where it lands, and it doesn't forget, and it doesn't forgive. Salt poisons soil for a long time, and almost nothing will grow where it's soaked in. That's exactly why it works so well in the dead cracks of a stone walkway, where you never want anything growing again, and it's the exact same reason you must never let that mixture touch your lawn or splash into a garden bed soil. Keep it strictly on stone, far from anywhere you ever hope to see something green grow again. Used in the right place, it's a genuinely excellent old tool. Used in the wrong place, it will cost you dearly. For the truly stubborn ones, weeds rooted deep into a joint that won't pull loose or wash away, reach for a wire brush or a narrow patio knife. Work the blade along the seam between stones, scraping the root up and out of the crack, then sweep away all the debris. It takes some arm effort, but it's thorough work that gets the whole root system out. And if you've got a long stretch of walkway or a wide patio to clear all at once, there's a flame tool available. A small torch on a long wand, and one slow, steady pass withers the plant right where it stands. No spray, no salt, nothing left behind in the cracks. Just mind the dry season carefully. Keep flame well away from anything that could catch and spread, and never use it near house siding or a wooden fence. Fire makes a good servant and a terrible master. But now stop and think with me for a moment, because pulling, pouring, burning, and scraping is really only half the job, and honestly, the lesser half. Here's the question almost nobody stops to ask. Why are these weeds growing in your walkway in the first place? Why there, of all places, pushing up through solid stone? The answer is this. The gaps between paving stones aren't just gaps. They're tiny open garden beds. Soft, sheltered, protected spots where a wind-blown seed can land, settle, find a bit of grit and moisture, and make itself at home. So you can clear that weed out 100 times over, but if you haven't addressed the bed it's growing from, you haven't actually accomplished anything lasting. You have to close the bed itself. That means filling those joints. Use kiln-dried sand, or better, polymer sand. Either one is available at any builder's yard or garden store for just a few dollars a bag. Sweep the sand down into the seams between the stones and work it in firmly, packing it tight with a broom until there's no open gap left anywhere for a seed to fall into. Polymer sand is the far better choice because once you wet it down with a hose, it sets up firm, almost like a soft mortar, and there's simply nowhere left for a seed to take hold and grow. It's one afternoon of honest work, and it saves you every weekend you'd otherwise have spent on aching knees for the rest of the season and the one after. The wise approach does a job once, properly, instead of repeating the same small task endlessly. Sealing those joints is exactly that kind of once-and-done work. The difference between a household that runs steady and one that's perpetually chasing the same trouble in circles. I want to be honest with you about who all this actually serves because it genuinely troubles me. Walk into any garden store in spring and you'll see an entire wall of bottles waiting for you. A different spray for every weed, a different powder for every season, a fresh jug for every fresh patch of trouble. And every single one needs repurchasing the following year because none of them ever quite solves the problem permanently. There's remarkably good money in a problem that never quite gets fixed. I'm not suggesting there's a room full of people somewhere plotting to keep your dandelions coming back. It's stranger and worse than that, It's a system, and the unsettling part is that nobody anywhere needs to coordinate it. Everyone up that supply chain does just fine when you keep coming back to buy another bottle, and nobody up that chain benefits at all when you solve the problem once, and for good, with a kettle of boiling water and a bag of sand costing a few dollars. So the simple answers, the cheap, permanent ones, the kind our mothers and grandmothers knew by heart, just quietly slip out of the conversation. Nobody hid them or destroyed them. They're simply never mentioned anymore. And something never mentioned might as well be forgotten entirely because it does nobody any good sitting unused. That's really the whole reason I make these videos, just to bring back up the plain, good things that stopped being mentioned somewhere along the way. So that's your weeds. The lawn fought one way, with a fork and tall grass. The walkway fought another way, with boiling water and the vinegar-salt mixture, and the joint sealed up afterwards so all that good work actually holds instead of undoing itself. But I want to warn you about what's coming next, so it doesn't catch you off guard. Once you've lifted out those deep taproots and killed off the spreading patches, you'll walk outside one morning and notice something new staring back at you. Bare dirt right where the weeds used to be. Ugly brown patches, thin and empty, sitting right in the middle of your good green grass. They come from the old weeds that crowded the grass out, from feet wearing the same path day after day, from a dog lying in the same cool spot all summer. So go take a real look at your lawn. If you've got those bare patches showing, tell me about it in the comments. Let me know where you're from and how old your house is. I read every single one, and it tells me a great deal about the kind of ground and climate everyone's working with out there. Because healing those bare spots, coaxing thick green grass back in quickly, is exactly what I'm going to show you in the next video. There's a real comfort in this kind of work, and I feel it every spring. The dandelion has been coming up through the same kinds of cracks since long before my grandmother ever knelt in the dirt, and longer still before that. And a kettle of plain boiling water answers it now exactly the same way it answered it then. Some things in life don't need improving. They don't need a new bottle or a better formula. They only need remembering. Come back for the next one, and we'll get that good grass growing thick and green again.